welcome to Today on the Green.
I'm your host, I'm Bridget, and that's Evie.
So with the second semester coming up, we have some new correspondents that joined our team. Yay!
So here's Nidhi with a story on iPhones.
Hi, I'm Nidhi, your science technology correspondent. Apple recently announced the release of the iPhone 15. One of the biggest changes in this model is the charging port. Apple has switched from the Lightning port to the traditional USB-C charging port. As of now, it is the only iPhone with this feature, seeing as all the other iPhone models still use the Lightning port for charging. At some point, everyone has to make the change. Good luck. Now back to the studio.
Thanks, Nidhi. You know, phones are getting so advanced, but I'm not satisfied until I get a little hologram on my phone, like when Princess Leia gave the message.
Help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope.
Exactly!
On a whole different note, here's Madison with the question, football or soccer?
What is the correct name for soccer? Is it soccer or football? Isn't it strange that soccer in Europe is called football, while football in America is a game mostly used with their hands to control the ball? Soccer, by far, is the most popular professional sport in the world. More specifically, European football is. However, the history of the sport and its words are far more complex. Football was a medieval game, and students of British universities took the game and began playing it with their own versions and rules. One version of the game was to be played with their hands, and became known as rugby football. Another version, without hands, was association football. Later on, the sport earned nicknames. Rugby football became rugby, and association football became soccer. As the games grew more popular and traveled across the world in the early 1900s, like British, the Americans created their own form of the game and named it football. They adopted the basics of both rugby and association football. The concept of the game was to play with their hands while running and passing to the end zone and occasionally kicking to make the ball in between goalposts. Another variant of their game was European football, but instead they named it soccer. Although the word soccer was created by the British, most British people stopped using the word due to American connotations. Let's ask Bearcat students what they think is the more appropriate name, soccer or football. So what do you guys think the correct name is, soccer or football?
Football.
Why is that?
Because you use your foot in it.
That is true, but I think that's just a coincidence that like soccer, you don't use foot, and then football for us,
Soccer is for Americans, and Americans are kind of dumb.
Because it did originate in England.
Yeah, I'm going to say soccer.
Yeah, I think so too. What about you, Nora?
I'm going to say football, just because the rest of the world does it. So
That's true.
yeah.
I think
it's interesting the origin of the word soccer came from England, ironically.
yeah,
Right.
they did change it. So and then they changed it we're going to change it to
They
soccer
went back
and then we're
and
going to go
forth.
back to football.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they didn't like that the Americans were
So-
using it.
Yeah.
So.
You know, whenever they bring up, oh, you guys say soccer, it's football, it's football. Well, you know what? You changed it first, so
That's kind of on you guys.
it
That's
really
true.
is.
And I think it's like if you say football and then you say football, how are you going to distinguish what you're talking about? you know?
Right.
American football.
So I guess you could say American football, but who's really going to say that?
Right. So you got to get too technical, too specific,
Yeah.
because we know football as using
Travis
your
Kelce.
hands. Travis Kelce. There you go.
Always
The NFL.
Call it football, and then you use your hands in it. That's kind of weird, right?
Right. It is misleading, but there's
It's
a
'cause
deeper meaning behind the
ball
name.
is supposed to be a foot long, but
But
yeah,
it gets more complex
it really does.
because the meaning of the words, where they originated from.
Who's your? What team do you support in soccer?
Real Madrid, obviously. I mean,
Barcelona all the way.
Do you watch soccer, Alyssa?
I watched it when the World Cup was going on.
That's the
last
only
year,
time I
but-
watch it too.
I feel like everybody was watching it, and the
Right.
games got really, really interesting.
they did.
But not
good World
usually. I would only watch it if it was on and there was nothing else. I do like watching women's soccer occasionally though, because
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that gets pretty interesting. Whereas guys
Right.
are just what's whatever.
One thing the Americans and Europeans share in common is their love for soccer, which spreads across the world every day and to younger generations. However, let's just say that if an American were to visit Europe and suggest playing a game of soccer, Europeans would likely judge with glances and stares.
Thanks, Madison.
Evie, do you think it's football or soccer?
I think football. Everyone else says it. We're the only ones.
You're such
so.
a sheep. You just follow what everyone says and tells you.
And that concludes today's episode of Today on the Green. Come back tomorrow to see what happens today on the Green tomorrow!